All right, settle down, everyone. Let's get straight to it. Welcome to today's explainer on constitutional law. I'm here to guide you through one of the absolute most critical, foundational aspects of Indian constitutional literature. Today, we're dissecting the exact legal position, powers, and functions of the President of India. Now, this is not a topic you can afford to just gloss over. It's literally the bedrock of our executive structure. So keep your notebooks open, pay strict attention, and let's commence.
Question 7. Discuss constitutional position, powers and functions of the President, including pardoning and ordinance. Listen, this is a guaranteed 16-mark question in your case law examinations. To score maximum marks here, an average rambling answer simply won't cut it. You require a perfect, rigid structure. You have to deliver the law exactly as the examiner expects to see it.
For our synopsis today, we're covering 5 mandatory sections. 1. Introduction and constitutional position. 2. Executive and legislative powers. 3. Ordinance and financial powers. 4. Judicial and emergency powers. And 5. Landmark case laws breakdown. That is your structural roadmap.
All right, moving into Section 1, Introduction and Constitutional Position. First things first, presentation is just as important as content. Always underline your headings and write out that exact synopsis we just went over on the very first page of your answer script. Okay, so, introduction. The Constitution provides for the office of the President under Articles 52 to 62. The President is the head of the state and the formal executive authority, while real executive power is exercised by the Council of Ministers. Pause right there. You absolutely must explicitly mention Articles 52 through 62. It establishes your legal boundary right out of the gate. And please, understand the critical legal distinction between formal and real. It's kind of like the president wears a crown, right? But the actual machinery of the state, the real executive power, that's driven by the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. Do not confuse the two.
Moving to point 2, the constitutional position of the President. The President is the nominal executive. They act on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers under Article 74. They're the symbol of unity, integrity, and sovereignty of India. And all executive actions are taken in the name of the President under Article 53. Now listen to me very carefully. Writing Article 74 and Article 53 in your answer sheet is absolutely mandatory. The whole aid and advice principle in Article 74 is what dictates the President's nominal status. He doesn't just act on his own whims, he is bound by this advice. This is literally the heartbeat of our parliamentary democracy. Let's move on to Section 2, Executive and Legislative Powers. On your exam paper, I want you to start a fresh paragraph here to clearly demarcate this section. These core powers are the main arsenal you've got to detail to justify that 16-mark score. Under executive powers, governed by Articles 53 and 77, the President appoints the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. They appoint governors of states, judges of the Supreme Court and High Courts, and the Attorney General of India. Plus, they administer the Union government. Write these out as clear, distinct bullet points. Don't give the evaluator a messy, giant paragraph. Furthermore, remember that Articles 53 and 77 must be cited right alongside the heading to demonstrate your mastery of the bare act.
Next up, legislative powers. The President summons, prorogues Parliament, and dissolves the Lok Sabha. They give assent to bills, they can withhold or return a bill except a money bill, and they address Parliament sessions. Let's make sure we dissect the precise legal terminology here. Prorogues means terminating a session of Parliament, whereas dissolves means entirely ending the life of the Lok Sabha, which triggers fresh elections. The President does both of these things. Also, guys, underline that crucial exception, except money bill. The President cannot return a money bill for reconsideration. The evaluator is absolutely going to look for that specific exception.
Moving right along to Section 3, Ordinance and Financial Powers.
Okay, pay strict attention now, because we're transitioning into the most frequently tested subtopics of the President's powers. A lot of students bleed marks here due to a lack of precision. Ordinance-making power, Article 123. The President can promulgate ordinances when Parliament is not in session. This ordinance has the exact same force as regular law, but it must be approved by Parliament within 6 weeks of reassembly. And it's used strictly in urgent situations when immediate law is required. Heavily emphasize Article 123. Let's break down the mathematical timeline here. 6 weeks of reassembly means once both houses of Parliament actually reconvene, they have exactly 42 days to approve the ordinance, otherwise it lapses. Also, make sure you explain the strict necessity of urgent situations as an exam checkpoint. It's not some alternative to regular lawmaking. It's a specific emergency legislative tool.
Point 4, financial powers. No money bill can be introduced without the President's recommendation. The President causes the union budget to be laid before Parliament and appoints the Finance Commission. Clarify in your minds right now that these three specific points form the absolute foundation of the President's financial jurisdiction. They must not be skipped under any circumstances. If you miss mentioning the Finance Commission, you lose a mark. It's really that simple.
Let's jump into Section 4, Judicial and Emergency Powers.
Keep your formatting disciplined here as we move into the judicial domain. Pardon completely removes the punishment. Commutation reduces the severity. Remission reduces the duration. Respite awards a lesser sentence. And reprieve grants a temporary stay. Here is a major tip. I strongly advise you to draw an identical table or a really precise list on your answer sheet under judicial powers. Make grading effortless for the evaluator. And understand the nuances here. Commutation changes the character of the punishment, like changing a death sentence to life imprisonment. Remission merely reduces the time, like cutting rigorous imprisonment of 2 years down to 1 year without changing the character. Make sure you know the difference.
So, judicial powers under Article 72 applies in cases of a death sentence, court-martial cases, and offenses under union laws. I'm deliberately explaining the jurisdiction limits of Article 72 right now. Why specifically union laws and court-martials? Well, it's because the President is the head of the Union Executive and the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces. State law offenses typically fall under the governor's pardoning power, not the President's, unless it explicitly involves a death sentence.
Point 6. Emergency powers. The President can declare a national emergency under Article 352, a state emergency under Article 356, and a financial emergency under Article 360. You need to memorize these three specific articles, 352, 356, and 360, sequentially. If you write an answer about emergencies without these exact constitutional numbers, you're going to lose significant marks. They form the triad of extraordinary powers meant to protect the security and financial stability of our nation.
And finally, Section 5, Landmark Case Laws Breakdown.
Listen up, because we've reached the climax of the explainer. This is exactly where average mediocre answers become distinction-level answers. Without case laws, a constitutional law answer is merely a hollow skeleton. The first case is Shamsher Singh v. State of Punjab. I want you to write this case name in a separate, explicit, boxed format on your exam script. Draw a box around it. Do this to instantly capture the evaluator's attention and make it impossible for them to miss the fact that you know your landmark judgments.
So what's the relevance? It deals with the constitutional position of the President. The court held that the President is only a nominal or executive head, and that real powers are exercised by the Council of Ministers. The President must act on aid and advice under Article 74. Now let's do a deep dive. The brief background of this 1974 case involves subordinate judicial officers whose services were terminated. The big question arose, does the governor or president exercise power personally or through the Council of Ministers? The 7-judge bench delivered a profound ratio decidendi. Our Constitution embodies the parliamentary system, not the presidential system. Therefore, the president and the governor are formal or constitutional heads. The true relevance of this case is that it permanently solidified the interpretation of Article 74. The aid and advice is not merely a suggestion, it is a binding directive. When you write this, underline aid and advice to show the evaluator exactly why this case matters.
The second case is D.C. Vadwa v. State of Bihar. Once again, I insist that you highlight or box this title precisely when you are discussing ordinance-making powers under Article 123.
The relevance here is all about that ordinance-making power. The court held that the repromulgation of ordinances is unconstitutional and that the ordinance power cannot be used as a substitute for legislation. Let me explicitly detail the background context here because it's honestly fascinating. The state of Bihar had engaged in this massively abusive practice of repromulgating the exact same ordinances hundreds of times, keeping them alive for years without ever actually facing the legislature. The Supreme Court's ratio decidendi struck this down as a blatant fraud on the Constitution. The absolute relevance of D.C. Wadhwa is that it establishes strict judicial review over executive overreach. The verdict made it completely clear that the ordinance power is an exceptional tool for emergencies. It is not a parallel lawmaking process designed to bypass the democratically elected legislature. Mention this case to completely secure your 16 marks when discussing Article 123. And finally, your conclusion. The President occupies a vital constitutional position as the head of the state. Though largely ceremonial, the President plays an important role through powers like ordinance making and pardoning, ensuring the smooth functioning of the constitutional system. This is exactly how you must conclude your paper. Bring all the threads together. But as we wrap up today, I leave you with a slightly provocative thought. Can an office that wields the absolute power of life or death through a pardon, and the power to legislate when Parliament sleeps, can that truly be diminished by the label ceremonial? Ponder that. Master this rigid structure, and you are going to absolutely dominate your constitutional law examination. Class dismissed.